Welcome to the Lady Landlords podcast, where we empower women to gain financial independence through real estate investing. I'm your host, Becky Nova, founder of Lady Landlords. If you're ready to buy, manage, and grow your real estate portfolio, then let's get started. Here is the most underrated strategy in real estate investing that you can take advantage of today. To me, this is like a beginner's hidden cash cow that, I gotta be honest, most people do not talk about. Even in our Lady Landlords community, this is a topic that I feel like so many investors skip. And that's why today we're gonna start talking about renting by the room, okay? This was actually a strategy that I employed before I was even thought of as a lady landlord, before I even realized what I was actually doing. For example, I started Lady Landlords back in 2020 after I'd already owned a couple duplexes and multifamilies by that point in time. I was a landlord in that traditional sense of having those properties, having that rented out. But I thought back about it and I realized I actually was a lady landlord all the way back in my college days. Why is that? Because I lived off campus after my sophomore year down in Washington, D.C. And I ended up moving into a townhouse. It had 3 bedrooms with a couple other people. Well, after the first year, they moved out. I loved the house. So I actually took over the lease and started renting by room. And I remember, especially being, that broke college kid, I was able to rent out the other rooms for what my rent was. And then I got to live for free throughout college. So to me, I already had that landlord idea. I was the one dealing with the leases, dealing with the house rules, all of those things. But yet I never considered myself a landlord in that space. But to be honest, that's exactly what I was doing. So today we're going to talk about this. If you are a person that possibly already owns property, maybe your own primary, and we're going to talk about what it would be like to rent rooms within your own home for extra cash flow, or to buy a brand new property that you have no intention of living in, but still would like to be able to rent by room there and possibly make more than you would if you actually rented that whole property. Now, this is a topic that I really wanted to be able to talk about right now because I know a lot of women in our Lady Landlords Facebook community are in savings mode. We're waiting to see what's going to happen economically. We're in the holiday season here. So maybe we are prioritizing either travel to go see family or making sure that we can make those holidays the best in the way that we see fit. But we still want to start thinking about, great, how are we spending and what does our budget look like there? But what we can also do to be able to bring in extra income. So if you're saying, well, I don't have a full down payment right now, or hey, I just can't find a deal that will work for me, just the prices just don't make sense because I can't rent them for what would cover the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, all of that. Renting by room might be the answer to bring in more cash flow if you add up room by room by room, rather than thinking about renting the whole space. So let's dive into this and what it's going to look like. To me, once again, I feel like because of what's going on with rising rents, what's going on with affordability for housing right now, some people are in more of a position where they say, you know what, instead of me going and getting a studio or a 1-bedroom apartment, you know what, I'm okay living in a place where I'm going to have roommates right now. So I think you have a lot more renters that are looking for a place where they're going to be in a shared space, right? It's actually sometimes kind of nice. It's a little bit more of a cheaper rent and possibly even less responsibility than if you had your own full apartment. So this is a great way that you're seeing a larger increase for people that were renting by room rather than looking for an entire apartment together. And also it helps those that possibly are living in their primary home that say, well, I have these extra rooms, and are willing to possibly take on a roommate for a certain period of time, right? So this is that opportunity for people to really navigate what we're going through economically and feeling comfortable and not feeling like they're over leveraging themselves
or that they are taking out loans that they're not going to be able to work with or buy something that isn't going to bring them the cash flow. Okay. This could be a good winning model for you because you're looking at a higher cash flow. You're looking at possibly a lower vacancy rate because you'd have other tenants in the unit. So it's not that you have a family living in the house or you have it empty, but hey, I have 2 out of 3 rooms filled, or I have some other person coming in. So, and it also gives you a little bit of built-in diversification. So if you're saying, you know what, everything else I'm doing is single family or multifamily, you can still look at this as having another business model depending on the way that things look at economically within the next year. So if this is something that you're saying, you know what, I can use an extra couple $100, an extra $1,000, $1,500 within your own properties. These could be existing properties you already have. This might be a way that you can implement an injection of cash flow to help you speed up, get into the financial freedom that you're looking like. So let's break down how that actually works. Okay. So once again, there's really 2 ways that I am wanting to share this idea. And one of those ways is, once again, if you live in a primary residence yourself and you're saying, hey, I have extra rooms. To be honest, you could also be in a place where you're renting a home or an apartment and you have those extra rooms and you are able to sublet yourself. Or if you're just saying, you know what, my kid went to college, or I ended up in a place with 2 bedrooms and I only need one of them. I'm not working from home anymore. I had to go back to the office. You can rent that extra space. Okay. The other space that we're talking about is if you are looking for a new home and a new rental, and for some reason you just are not having your numbers work out, it might be a good option to start thinking about what you could do just renting by the room rather than kind of that whole package together. This is a fantastic way to do that if you have a property that has multiple levels. If you have a basement space that you can possibly change, if you have an attic that you can convert, right? All of those different things are ways that you can use existing properties to bring in extra money. You're not talking about a 20% down. You're not talking about having to save for 25% of a new property. So this is something I want you to start thinking about. What can you do with what you already have to bring in that extra cash flow? You don't have to wait to buy another rental to make money. You don't have to wait until interest rates change or prices drop to really be able to start bringing in that extra income. Your setup here, you have a ton of different options. What's really great is that you can also look at an option where you can do furnished or you can do unfurnished. And that just doesn't work for just the long-term rental properties, but you can look into seeing if that's something that you want to just test it out and do a short-term rental. Usually with the shorter term rentals, you can actually charge a higher price point and you want to be furnished, but then you could say, you know what? I did that for a month. I really didn't like it. I'm not going to do it again. And then you're not out anything. It's worth giving it a try. You can also do a midterm rental where you then are not committed yourself to having somebody for a full year, but really testing it out with somebody for 3 to 6 months. Or then you have that long-term model and bringing in multiple people into that property. And then you have shared common spaces. Really the most important thing and probably the only thing you're gonna have to spend money on to get that set up is making sure that each bedroom has a lock on it, right? And a key. That would be it. What you want to think about then is having those individual leases per person, and then how you're really going to split up utilities, how you're going to split up and make sure that your shared spaces are worked out. What our cleaning schedules look like, and what those different pieces of having now multiple personalities and different people in that same shared space. Okay. But you're probably saying, that's my problem. What am I going to do if people don't get along? And like I said, this was actually what I did in that townhouse back when I was in college. So I've seen what those situations are going to look like. And you're going to have to deal with these if you're going to have people in your own space, or if you were even saying, hey, I'm going to rent out this space and it has 4 bedrooms and it's going to be 4 separate people and I'm not living there. You still need to be able to think about how people are going to get along. You're going to start to attract people, though, that understand that what they're looking for is that room shared situation. So most people in that sense are saying, you know what, I'm going to compromise and have a roommate and live in that particular space because I know I can save on money. And they're usually going to be a little more understanding to the fact that they're going to have other people there. Usually you're looking at people that are younger that maybe are still in school or just graduated. young professionals, your traveling nurses, people that are going through transitions and relationships. Sometimes people just want to be able to be social and have some other people in that space. Maybe even people that are relocating for work and want to be able to test out and learn what different areas in a new city are going to be like. And it's a great opportunity for them to be able to get in for a cheaper rate, have almost a little bit of a built-in social situation as well. And then they can decide from there where they necessarily want to go. So there are a ton of people that are looking for those downgraded spaces, especially in today's economy, where then they can say, you know what, I can save a little bit more on having some shared space. That might even be you saying, I have an extra room in my house, or I have a space I can convert. Why not use it to bring in some extra income? I understand there's concerns with this. And I want to address some of the biggest concerns that I've noticed in lady landlords when we do talk about renting by room. The first one is thinking about, well, is this going to be more work? Now I don't just have one tenant, but now I have multiple tenants. It's really important to get your systems and your agreements in place. Think through those situations. What I mean by that is great. You're still going to need a lease for everybody, and they're all going to be on separate leases. You're going to have to decide, are we picking a date that's for that entire year that everybody's lease would start on May 1st? Or are you going to do kind of a rolling admissions when somebody else comes in? Great. Then their year starts in September, but then people might be moving in and out at different times. Or would you rather say, great, everybody gets a lease until May. It doesn't matter if you move it in May or if you move it in September, but leases all come up in May. It might be easier for you as well to remember, okay, here's when I have to talk to people about who's staying, who's leaving, when I have to find somebody new. But then also, one, you might have the entire house vacant at that point in time. And then you also might turn off people that then in December are like, well, I don't want to lease just for 4 months. I want to lock in a year. So think about those things at the beginning. Think about cleaning schedules. Are you going to have a cleaner that's going to go in? So then that way there's not fights and you don't have to hear about, well, I cleaned the bathroom, but she cleaned the kitchen, but he didn't clean the kitchen, and all of those different options. Sure, you can always use a property manager, but really self-management is not difficult and keeps more money in your pocket if you learn how to systemize these different tasks. For me, the biggest piece was always conflict between tenants. Now, I, as a landlord, with even just having rental properties where I rent out the entire space, I don't like hearing about, well, who ate whose bread, who took their milk, who made noise on somebody else's head in a different unit, none of those things. So what you want to start to think about when you're going to now do a room sharing type situation is, what are house rules? What are the agreements of what expectations are? And make sure that they're in your lease. They need to be able to be in your lease with that. It's also really important to make sure to have people coming in that are understanding of what this room share situation is going to be like, that they do understand that they're living with other people and they don't get to control the entire show. But having those house rules and organization, that might be something where then you have, where they have mini fridges in each of their rooms. So you don't have to worry about who's taking whose food or who's sharing something or who doesn't get along. Those little things can really make a huge difference in keeping people happy and making sure that you don't have to be having all your time taken up by dealing between those conflicts. It might also be something you decide that you just want everybody to be on a month-to-month type of lease. So then that way, if they don't get along, then you can get those people removed from that space. I also do want to make sure to understand your state laws here, and also make sure that you understand your fair housing laws. If you are having people in your own place where you are living there as well, you can pick and you can decline anybody else. Maybe you're a lady landlord that says, I don't want to be living with men in the house. Cool, you can do that. But if you have an outside house where you are not living in it and you are subject to fair housing guidelines, you cannot say, well, I'm only going to rent to women under the age of 30. Or, hey, I am going to turn these people down for this reason if it's violating something within fair housing laws. So do make sure to be aware of that. Next question you want to ask yourself before getting started with this is this legal where I live? You need to make sure that you can have that rooming house. Some cities, some municipalities do not allow that, or they have restrictions on how many people you could be living there or what that makeup of those people are going to be. So do make sure to call your town, ask about it, call zoning, ask these questions first. And also, if you're thinking about converting basement space, attic space, you want to think about how you can do that legally and what zoning procedures you have to go through to have that legal basement space before you're renting out people. That's going to cause a huge, huge amount of problems if you're renting a legal space. So please do make sure, talk to your attorney, call your town, and understanding those zoning basics. With multiple people, one thing you always want to think about is how are we keeping people safe? In that situation, what's great with the world of technology these days is you can have smart locks. If you're not living in the property yourself, everybody gets their own lock on their door. That's a code that you still have yours as the owner, but people can go and just put a code on the doors. You can use your cameras on the exterior and really making sure that there are locks on bedroom doors is going to be the most important thing. That's something that everybody is going to be looking for. So that way, even if you have to furnish or have that shared space for a kitchen, for a living room, you really do make sure that those bedrooms are really private and personal for everybody. When you think about this as doing this in your own home, you might want to consider how you're going to feel about having people. And are you in a place in your life where you are okay taking on roommates? You need to think about what then is going to be important for you. And if, once again, if you're having people in your own home, you can be picky about screening practices. So think about that before. Who do you want coming in? Who are you willing to live with? And maybe, once again, shorten your lease terms. So then that way you can also give this a try, give this a test, and see if you're okay with it before really diving into year leases or before buying then a full rental property and renting out by room in a location that you are not going to also be in. But this is something that can really make or break a deal, especially in today's market with sales price, with interest rates, with where we are economically right now. So normally you're looking for your purchase price of that property, what the expense is going to be for the mortgage, the utilities, your cleaning, if you're providing internet, all of those different types of things. And then you say, great, what can I rent it out for? But in this case, you want to think about that per room. So for example, simple math here, let's say you have a 2-bedroom apartment somewhere that can rent for $2,000. Very typical over here in certain areas of New York. 2-bedroom, $2,000. Well, great. But that might not be able to actually make the money that you need to cover those expenses. But maybe if you rent it out each room for $1,200, $1,200 times 2, now you're talking $2,400. That's an extra $400 every single month. Maybe that turns that bad deal into a good deal. Okay, $400 every single month, that now puts you in the black times 12 months. That's almost $5,000 right there. So when you're thinking about what amount of money do you need to be able to either replace your income or cover your car payment or pay for your kids' volleyball lessons, would that extra $500 help you? If you could put those systems in a place where it does not require more time, more energy, anything like that, but you can make that extra $5,000 every single month, what would that do to speed you up to get to those goals of what you were looking for? Okay. So once again, this might be something that you want to test out. And I think that in today's market, this is a completely underused strategy. So let's talk about how you can get started right now with doing this. Okay. First thing, check your local laws, your zoning. See if this is even something you can do within either your own personal property or with a new property that you're going to be buying. Think about the space that you have would be number 2. Are you going to be using the existing bedroom? Are you converting space? Are you dividing up your current living room and putting a new bedroom in there? Are you going to be converting a basement? Are you just using your guest room? Whatever that looks like, really think about what is the space that you already have. Then third, think about what are the rules that you're going to need to make sure that everybody can live there happily and with the least amount of your time and your energy going into it. Because what we want to make sure that we're doing is increasing our income, but decreasing our time and our commitment to day-to-day management. All right. So if you need any help with running numbers, coming up with house rules, or deciding if this is right for you, do make sure, shoot me a message or put a comment down in the chat. Let me know if you've done this strategy and where I can help. But otherwise, as always, feel free to shoot me an email at becky@lady-landlords and let me know if you're looking at an opportunity and how I can best support you in that. Otherwise, head over to the Lady Landlords Facebook group. It's a great place to be able to connect with other women that are already doing this strategy and learn what you could best do to make this process work for you. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. As always, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next episode of the Lady Landlords podcast, as we release new episodes every single Tuesday. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Landlords podcast. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate investing journey, visit lady-landlords.com to book a 15-minute orientation call with me and see if you're ready to join our mentorship program. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our Facebook group for exclusive real estate investing tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a Lady Landlord today.